Hi everyone, Angela here. This is my new design called the Holly Round Drawstring Bag. Of course, you can make this bag without the strap and side loops, as it's great as a makeup bag and for general storage. Find the link for this pattern and the full tutorial down on the left and in the description below. Cut the outer pieces and the key strap from the main fabric. Then cut out the notches on the bottom. Cut the rest of the pieces out of contrast fabric. I'm using quilting cotton for both layers. To give this bag some body, I'm using heavy, non-woven, fusible interfacing with the glue dots on one side. You can also use fusible woven interfacing. Cut pieces for the straps and the front and back. For the bottom of the bag, use Peltex 71F. It's an ultra-firm, heavyweight, one-sided fusible stabilizer. I find it easiest to trace around the circle and then cut out with scissors. Have the main bottom piece with wrong side up and then center the stabilizer on top with the glue side down. Hold both, carefully flip over and press together. Flip over again, place the lining on top with wrong side down, matching all the notches, iron out any creases and clip all around. For the front and back, place the interfacing with glue side up, then place the main fabric on top with wrong side down. Match all the edges, press together, and repeat with the other side. To prepare the bias binding, fold it in half lengthwise with wrong sides together, carefully match the edges, and press. Open up and fold the outer edges to the center and press, leaving a tiny gap in the middle. Once done, fold in half again, matching the edges, and press. This is called the four-fold strap method. Repeat this pressing for the loops. Repeat again for the key strap, but this time we just need to finish one end. Open up so that the right side is flat. Turn the top over about 1/4 inch and press. Trim the right corner just a tiny bit. Fold the left side, then carefully tuck in the right side. Adjust so that all the edges match and clip together. For the 2 drawstrings, piece J, again press and fold exactly the same way, but this time finish both ends and clip along the edges. I'm using the Juki TL-2010Q sewing machine. The link for this and the tools I use are down in the description below. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, click the link for Echidna Sewing and Juki Junkies for North America. Edge stitch both sides of the loop piece, then fold in half and cut into 2. For the 2 drawstrings, start by stitching across the end. Hold on to both threads, back tack, pivot at the corner, stitch down the folded edges, pivot at the end again, and back tack to finish. For the key strap, start at the folded end, back tack, and stitch the edges together. Insert the folded end into a small swivel clasp and fold under about 1/2 inch. Then carefully stitch straight across the strap, back tacking at each end. Stitch the bottom pieces together along the center of the seam allowance. With right sides together, put the strap ends together to form a 90-degree angle. If you need to, draw a line from corner to corner. Stitch along this line, back tacking at the start and finish, and then trim, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Press this seam open flat. With the wrong side up, place the glue side of the interfacing on top and have the interfacing 3/8 inch in from the edge of the fabric. Match the edges and press together. The reason why I add the interfacing after joining the pieces is so that there's less bulk at the seams. Add the other piece of interfacing by overlapping just a tiny bit. The interfacing is also 3/8 inch in from the other end. Trim it if you need to. Fold and press this entire strap just like the drawstrings. Close both ends and clip all together. To stitch the strap, we'll be sewing 1/8 inch in from both sides and across the ends. To help keep your stitching straight, you can use a magnetic guide. What I find even better is using the SP18 presser foot with the edge guide on the side. Switch to this foot and pull up the bobbin thread. Increase the stitch length to 3 or 3.5. Starting at one end, back tack, pivot at all the corners, and back tack to finish. It's so easy to get perfect edge stitching. Next, I'll be using the P363 narrow zipper foot to sew on the clasps. You can also use a one-sided zipper foot. To help keep the thread from bird nesting, sew a few stitches on a scrap piece of fabric as a leader, and that'll keep the thread under tension. To make the strap adjustable, start by threading one end of the strap through one of the clasps and slide it out of the way. Have the slider buckle the right way up, and then from underneath, thread the strap through. Have the crease of the strap folded around that center bar and pull the buckle tight against it. Have the presser foot right beside the buckle and carefully stitch straight across between the edge stitching, back tacking at the start and finish. Make sure to keep holding that buckle tight against that center bar. You can leave it with one row of stitching, but I'm going to stitch one more right beside it to make it stronger. With the right side of the strap facing outward, thread the other end through the buckle and pull it down to shorten the strap. Add the other clasp and make sure the end is folded to the back. Again, stitch as close as you can to the clasp between the edge stitching. This time for the second row, we'll stitch closer to the end of the strap. If you want, you can also stitch an X between the corners or add a third line in the center. Switch back to a standard presser foot. Fold the pocket pieces in half and press along the top. Use the pattern to mark out all the pocket lines. For both pieces, stitch across the top 5/8 of an inch from the folded edge, back tacking at the start and finish. Use a bodkin or a safety pin, attach it to one end of the elastic, and place a clip on the other end. Thread it through the channel and leave a little bit of elastic out at each end. Stitch back and forth close to the edge of the fabric to secure it, then stretch it out to even out the gathers and repeat with the other piece. Fold all the pleats at the bottom and clip in place. Place the pockets on top of the linings, match the edges and the pocket markings, and clip together. Pin the pockets in place, repeat with the other side, stitch around the edges and along the pocket lines. If you're finding this video helpful, make sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on all notifications, and leave a comment below. As always, I'd love to know where in the world you're watching from. You can also show your support by becoming a member. Position the key strap at the notch on one of the linings. On one of the main pieces, thread the loops through the D-rings, fold in half, and then clip them on the sides at the notches. Tack all three close to the edges to hold in place. Put the main pieces with right sides together, matching the notches, and clip the sides. I'm just marking the notches at the top so you can see what I'm doing. With right sides together, clip the sides of the lining, carefully matching the edges of the fabric and the tops of the pockets. Using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, stitch all the sides, back tacking at the start and finish. Also back tack over the key strap and the tops of the pockets to make it a bit stronger. Use the same seam allowance to stitch the main pieces together. Start with a back tack, stitch to the first notch and back tack again. Skip over to the next notch and back tack. When you get to the D-ring, make sure to push it out of the way and then carefully back tack over the strap ends. Back tack to finish and then repeat on the other side. Open up the seams and press them all flat. This next step is optional. I'm going to adhere the seam allowance between the notches. I'm cutting small pieces of fusible web tape or hemming tape the same width as the seam. Make sure it's all covered by the seam, then press. This will give it a nice finish and make it easier when threading in the drawstrings. You can also use fabric glue. I just find it looks neater than edge stitching around the opening. Turn the outer bag right side out and insert it into the lining with right sides together. Carefully match the side seams and the top edges, then clip all around. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, stitch around the top. There's no need to back tack, just overlap to finish. Pull down the lining with the right side out. Press around the seam, then pull the lining back in. Match the side seams and the bottom edges and clip all around. The seam should be 3/8 of an inch from the top. Press the top fold, making sure that it's even all around. With chalk or a heat erasable pen, mark a line 3/4 of an inch from the top all around. Draw another line 1 inch from the first line, and this will be at the bottom of the openings. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, first stitch the bottom edges together. Then turn the bag inside out. Starting at the side seam, stitch along both lines, backtacking at the start and finish. Be sure to keep the layers flat and even. At the bottom edge, match the 2 side seams together, then cut small triangular notches on each side. With right sides together and matching all the notches, clip the bottom to the bag. You'll notice when you're attaching a circle that the seam is wavy. It's the stitch line that you want to make sure fits all around. Match the rest of the notches, make sure the edges are even, and clip all around. I'm now going to change to a P36LN one-sided zipper foot. Stitch right beside the edge of the stabilizer, backtacking at the start and finish. This can be a bit tricky, so go slow and use a stiletto to help you keep those edges even. Open one end of the bias binding and fold matching the top edge with the right edge. Crease along the fold and trim, leaving about 1/4 of an inch. To reduce bulk, add the binding just past the side seam. Place the right side of the binding along the bottom. Match the edges and sew along the fold, which should be right against the edge of the stabilizer. Start with the back tack and carefully sew around. Keep checking that the fabric is flat underneath and stretch the binding slightly as you sew. When you get to the end, overlap it. You should have about 1 inch from here. Just trim away any excess. If your seam isn't perfect, that's all right. We'll trim it down now to 1/4 of an inch. Just trim away about 1/8 of an inch all around. Fold the ends of the binding together so that it's even and straight across. Fold over the seam so that the edge just covers the stitch line and clip in place. Repeat all around. Flatten down the bag to stitch the binding. Have this folded edge run along the inside of the foot. Edge stitch all around, backtacking at the start and finish. It really helps to use an awl or stiletto to keep the binding edge in place. The underside of the binding might not look perfect, but it doesn't matter as it won't be showing. Turn right side out and iron away the lines and any major creases. Press the drawstrings, then thread one of them through the channel and out the same opening. Make sure the strap isn't twisted, even it out, tie together into a knot close to the end, repeat on the other side, then add the strap. I hope you enjoy making this bag. Be sure to check out some of my other designs. Thanks again for watching. Take care and happy sewing.